Commonwealth heads of government, they're set to defy the UK government, demanding slavery reparations at a leaders' summit today.
Well, let's cross over to our political editor, Christopher Hope, who is in our Westminster studio for us. And, Christopher, I believe you've got a guest with you.
That's right. Yes, hello both, Tom and Emily. Yeah, with me now is Nigel Farage, known to us, of course, as a presenter on GBNews, but also, as importantly, maybe more importantly, the leader of Reform UK. Thanks for joining us on GBNews.
Okay.
What does Sir Keir Starmer say to Commonwealth countries wanting reparations for our slavery past?
No, never. Now, there is an argument for reparations, obviously. I think the French... during the 100 Years' War, I think the raids into Kent and Sussex, the loss of so much. I mean, where do you stop with this? Where do you stop with this? Do you go for reparations against the African black slave traders who sold the slaves to us in the first place? I mean, you know, actually, are we owed reparations from the Portuguese, Spanish, who carried on slaving, and we at a massive cost stopped them doing it? Look, if you give an inch on this, if Starmer shows any weakness on this, even if we might consider it, this will never go away. And I think I detect something going on here. The Chinese Communist Party have been doing their very best to chip away at the Commonwealth for quite some time. Barbados, Solomon Islands, etc. And I think some of these excessive demands, I think China's behind it. We must stand firm.
The numbers are huge, 200 billion to 17 trillion by some forecasts. I mean, is it worth looking at what is a number? Because these numbers are crazy. Tom Harwood was saying it's, I think, 5 to 6 times the value of the country, 17 trillion.
Look, we cannot concede anything. The past is the past is the past. We are not guilty for it. We are not responsible for it. And there are many other countries in the world who've done far worse than we've done in a whole variety of areas. So, no, and my fear, we've seen this weakness from the Archbishop of Canterbury.
100 million they're offering, aren't they, from the church?
That'll never be enough. I mean, this is like paying Medangeld. You know, if you pay the invader to go away, he comes back the next year and asks for more.
Keir Starmer has said no, not going to talk about it, but he is now looking at a division in the Commonwealth leaders, which is not normal. I haven't seen a division amongst that group since South Africa and apartheid back in the 80s. And that was a big issue, of course, for the monarchy and for the government. Do you blame them for asking for it? Given what David Lammy said in the past, he's talked about we want reparations, not apologies. Keir Starmer's history as a human rights lawyer. Surely these countries, fair enough, they're seeing a change of leadership. Let's ask.
Well, if you see weakness, you know, an opportunity for yourself, you go for it. And Lammy, they certainly see as being very weak on this. I mean, you know...
But he's a black man too, and his family was taken away at gunpoint in chains, as he told the United Nations, didn't he, in that Security Council meeting?
Yeah, and he's called for reparations in the past very publicly for Windrush victims. No. These countries see a financial opportunity. So this is it. Starmer has to put, and Lammy, have to put the tin lid on this debate for good.
We do help them with aid money. We do help the developing world with aid money. We try and support them that way. Is that a way of saying that this is a way of giving back after we took so much?
Ironically, the aid budget, of course, is falling because we're using that money to house people who, as we speak, are crossing the English Channel at a cost of 41,000 quid a year for each person.
8 million a year in hotels.
Aid is not the answer. Trade is the answer. Many of these Caribbean islands struggle to sell their goods to us because of EU rules. This is the way that Brexit should have allowed us to come closer to the Commonwealth. I'm afraid it hasn't happened.
Story of the day in the UK, aside from reparations, is Donald Trump writing he's concerned about Labour. Is it a serious letter? Is it just a bit of play? They talk about Yorktown, don't they? They talk about the history of knocking on doors of Brits in America. So is it serious? You know what he's like. He's quite mischievous, Donald Trump, isn't he?
Oh, very. Of course.
So is it a serious issue or one that's blown up?
When he's not working at McDonald's, he does a bit of politics as well. And, I mean, he is mischievous, of course he is. Look, I think it is absolutely crazy. And we can argue about the LinkedIn post, not saying they had to take time off, not saying they had to pay airfares. We can argue about the paid visit that Morgan McSweeney and others took, the Labour Party paid for them to go to the convention. Were they giving advice on targeting elections? We can argue about all of that. What matters is that America is our most important relationship in the world, important in terms of security and intelligence sharing, important in military terms because without us, we are the linchpin between us of NATO, important because America's the biggest foreign investor in Britain and us in America. And just on the eve of an election, for a British government to be so openly supporting the opposing candidate, especially...
It's not the government, it's the
party,
officials in the governing party. But
the
government isn't supporting anybody, is it?
It's the Labour Party, and it's a Labour government. And do you honestly think that American Republicans are going to make that distinction that you've just made there? Diplomatically, it is a stupid thing to do.
Have you talked to him recently about this? Is it something he's raised with you when you chat with him?
No. Do you know what? The last couple of weeks of campaign, I am not ringing him up for a chat. I mean, he is busy. He knows what he's got to do. He knows that it's the cost of living that really matters, that a dozen eggs now costs pretty much exactly double what it did 4 years ago. He's doing very well. He's going to win.
All eyes into Wednesday next week of the budget. What would you do to fill the £22 billion black hole that Labour claim is there?
Oh, there's not a £22 billion black hole. That's nonsense. It's 2.7 trillion. And it's growing every single year.
That's the debt figure.
Yeah. We've had 14 years of the Conservatives saying we're reducing the deficit, we're reducing the deficit. Well, they took over in the wake of the biggest bailouts of the banking industry that to that moment in time had ever been seen. So it's not surprising the deficits were reduced. We never got any honesty in 14 years about the size of a national debt. We won't get any next Wednesday. Even our interest repayments are now as much as our defence budget. And not just nationally, but individually. GDP, the measure of wealth per capita, has fallen over the last 2 years in about 6 different quarters. The more the population explodes, the poorer we get. And what I would love to see is a chancellor saying, if we carry on with this current course, in 10, 20-year time, you can forget pensions.
She's not the Tory party. She's not George Osborne. She won't do that.
No, you can forget pensions. You can forget anything. What we need, Chris, is a change of culture. We need to become a country that believes that work is a good thing, a country that says success is a good thing. The only way governments ever get out of economic problems is to grow their way out. I expect to see anti-small business without any growth incentives at all next week.
Yeah. Looking into next May's local elections, you've written today to 1,352 people. Who are these people?
Sitting Conservative county councillors who won their seats 4 years ago at what was peak Boris. It was the same day they won the Hartlepool by-election. Boris was going to be PM for the next 15 years, and a lot of them got elected and were surprised. Most of them, if they stand again, will lose their seats next May, partly because of the collapse of support.
So what are you offering
for the Conservative Party? And what I'm saying is this. Reform are taking these elections very seriously. We will be standing candidates against them. They will almost certainly, most of them, lose their seats. But if they believe in the same values and principles that we do, very happy to consider them becoming candidates for us.
What do you think about your current candidates you've already chosen? Might be a bit peeved if you bring in Tory councillors to replace them.
The reason I've given them a couple of weeks to come back is our process of selecting begins in November. So I'm doing this before we've selected anybody. And the one thing we've got a huge number of enthusiastic people. The one thing we haven't got are many people with real experience of local government. So some of these people coming on board would help us enormously.
And how would you expect to come back and come across?
I honestly don't know.
I mean, you've got 28 reform councillors at the moment, so would you double that figure?
There are councillors at district level and Summit County coming to us every single week. I don't expect this letter to have an immediate hit because they'll say, well, we're going to wait and see whether Kemi wins or whether Generic wins. But the truth is, my view is the Conservative brand is so broken that it doesn't really matter. But I'd be surprised if... We've already had, this morning one's joined already. I've got a couple on my desk to talk to who seem very keen. Let's see where we go.
It's all on you, isn't it? It's a lot of pressure on you all the time. I mean, because you're the public face of this party.
Well, without pressure, life would be very dull.
And how are they getting to you? Have you got a Telegram channel set up, a secret squirrel?
I've given them a private email address, and we will find secure means of conversation.
OK. Well, Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, and, of course, the presenter at GBNews, thank you for joining us today